You are now listening to Talk Your Jits podcast.
Hello and welcome to Talk Your Jits podcast. This podcast is, as the name implies, all about Jiu Jitsu. I'm your host, Lamar Smith, and today's guest is a second-degree black belt who trains at GFT Arizona, teaches at Abu Dhabi BJJ MMA, and also teaches at Blue Star Grappling Academy, all located in Phoenix, Arizona. Ladies and gentlemen, Nestor Mendez.
Hello.
Hello, sir. How are you doing today?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. It's always a good day when we get to sit down and talk about jiu-jitsu.
Absolutely.
All right, so if you want to give yourself a more formal introductions, by all means, and let's hear about your jiu-jitsu journey.
Alrighty. Well, as you mentioned, my name is Professor Nestor Mendez. I'm a second-degree black belt under Professor Marcelo Cavallo and Master Julio Cesar Ferreira. Here located in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm the co-director of Grappling Fight Team Arizona, and teach out of a couple of academies here, as well as out of my home. Been doing jiu-jitsu now, just celebrated 16 years, going on 17 years in the art.
Wow. Pretty long time.
A little bit of time, yeah.
So please continue.
I started jiu-jitsu, kind of was looking to do something different. I was like most, trying to get in better shape. Back in 2001, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and spent a few weeks in the hospital because of it, and was needing to lose weight, tighten things up, get in better shape, and just getting bored with the regular, going to the gym, hitting weights. Just wasn't really feeling like I was going anywhere with it. Started looking at getting back into martial arts. I had done a little bit here and there as a kid. And then at the time I was working for Bank of America and was transferred with a promotion to Las Vegas, Nevada, where we lived for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. And I started out actually looking around at a few places. And one morning I go to the grocery store across the street from our apartment, our first apartment, and I see a Scion pull up. And out steps this guy with big ears. And I notice it's Forrest Griffin, who had the year before just won the original Ultimate Fighter.
Okay.
And he was going into the Las Vegas Combat Club. And I believe it was Sergio Pena that was teaching jiu-jitsu out of there. So I sat out front watching the classes from the window until Mike Pyle, the UFC fighter, came out and said, "You're creeping everybody out. Either come in and try a class or get out of here." And so I went in, did a couple classes, but I didn't sign up because we were going to be moving to the north side of town. Once we got out to that side of town, I found a gym that was just about to open up called Excel Defense Studios. It was owned by my friend James Miranda, who was a North Las Vegas police officer at the time. Mm-hmm. And we were the Militich Fighting System affiliate under Pat Militich for MMA. In Las Vegas, and Professor Mika Sipley, who is currently the regional director of Gracie Umaita in Las Vegas, was doing the jiu-jitsu. And that's when I started my MMA and jiu-jitsu journey. MMA was under Tony Fricklin, and Professor Mika and Professor Walter Cascal Vital were my two primary jiu-jitsu instructors out there. I was there for about 7 or 8 months. And then I moved back to Albuquerque, which is where I'm originally from. Spent a year training MMA and Nogi with my childhood friend Greg Jackson at Jackson's MMA, and did my stand-up with Mike Winklejohn, and even started a satellite team in the suburb of Albuquerque in Rio Rancho. Everybody that I trained with there went on to fight professionally. They all went on to either, fight in professionally locally or even in UFC and Strikeforce at the time. I ended up going back to jiu-jitsu, primarily still with a little bit of focus on MMA at Albuquerque Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and MMA. We helped build the MMA team there. We had a few professional fighters, and I earned my blue through brown belt there under Professor William Carpenter. Then in early 2014, I moved to Phoenix. and I started training at Black Flag Jiu Jitsu Club, currently known as Black Flag Submission Company, and I was the lead Jiu Jitsu instructor there. And towards the end of that year, November of 2014, Professor Cavallo awarded me my BJJ black belt.
Wow.
So a bit of a journey, bounced around a little bit, but life happens. But it was a great opportunity. I got to train under some great instructors. I got to train with some great fighters, especially over at Jackson's and even out in Vegas. Tony Fricklin was bringing through like Matt Hughes, and Robbie Lawler was getting ready for his fight against an old schoolmate of mine, Joey Villasenor, when Pride was in Vegas. So I left Vegas, went to Jackson's, and Joey was getting ready to fight Robbie, who I had just been training with in Las Vegas. And they fought in Pride about early 07.
Okay.
So a lot of good opportunities to train with some really great fighters and gain a great amount of experience. I'm now currently a co-director of Grappling Fight Team Arizona with my good friend and my jiu-jitsu brother, Professor Sadiq Walt Daniels, who's a third-degree black belt under Professor Marcelo Cavallo as well, and Master Julio Cesar Ferreira also. He owns and runs Blue Star Grappling, which is our GFT headquarters.
Okay, so with you, I mean, I guess obviously you still train, which is awesome, and you teach at two different, you train and teach at three different schools. So how are you, how do you find time to balance all that?
Well, I have quite a bit of time on my hands. I'm unable to work because I'm legally blind.
Okay.
Which happened over the last 5 years. And so, I teach privates out of my home, and then I help out at Abunai, teaching classes there, and then I try to get out to our headquarters at Blue Star like once a week, usually on Saturdays, to teach a little there.
Oh, okay. So you're not like, I guess would be like the head instructor per se at these schools.
No, not at all.
Okay. So you said you found out you're legally blind, you said 5 years ago. So I guess with your training, how was jiu-jitsu one of the things that you used to help cope with, find out this information, or what?
Yeah, it kind of started back in 2011. I started having some problems with my eyes, and by 2012, I found out that I had severe cataracts forming on both eyes. And insurance was a little difficult at the time, and I ended up towards the end of 2013 going out to Mexico to get the cataract surgeries. I knew that there would have to be some continued work on the right eye. So I moved to Phoenix, started working, and then I started having problems with the right eye. It wasn't, I couldn't see the color green anymore. Everything green was gray.
Oh, wow.
And the left eye started getting a little bad too. And when I went to the doctor, both retinas had detached. The right eye had been detached for some time and had built up scar tissue. So the left eye successfully, the retina reattached just fine on the left eye. The right eye, it kept coming unattached, and they had to go in like 3 times to reattach the retina. A few months later, that following December of 2016, I got an infection in the right eye that bored right through the cornea, so the fluid leaked right out of my eye.
Wow.
And they had to do an emergency cornea transplant. The eye did okay for a little while, then went into shock and completely shut down after that. The left eye, because of the diabetes, got severely scarred right in the center of the eye. So that hindered some of my eyesight, and then it looked like cataracts were starting to form on the implant lens that had been replaced in 2013. And it's funny because jiu-jitsu, I was rolling with, the spazzy white belt, and I got a heel right to the head, and it jolted or dislocated the lens from where it was. And I was able to see a little better. the cataract was starting to form on that lens, so when it broke loose I could see better. They just don't want to go in and replace the lens now because I only have the one eye, and they don't want to run the risk of the retina detaching again and going back down that road. So as long as I can deal with it the way it is, I see well enough. Luckily, jiu-jitsu's tactile, so I don't have to see really. Once I get my grips, everything is by touch.
Right.
I can see a bit, but I still roll with my eyes closed because I don't want to get poked. I only have the one eye left. But jiu-jitsu for me, well, going through all that was kind of a therapy for me.
Mm-hmm.
There did come a point where I didn't want to get out of bed. I'd go to sleep and I'd wake up, and that reminder, one eye's dark and the other eye's only seeing shapes. You open your eyes, you have that reminder always in front of you, and then you start running down that list of things I can't do anymore. I can't ride a Harley anymore. I can't even go for a bike ride. I couldn't go for a walk because I was afraid of where I was going to step. I wasn't going to be able to do this. I wasn't going to be able to do that, and it puts you into a bit of a depressive state.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing that made me just get up and get out of bed was to go to jiu-jitsu, to get on the mat, to teach, to share, to get in and roll with people, because although I was walking timidly on the floor because I was afraid of where I was going to step, I couldn't see directly in front of me. I felt like a little old man walking around bumping into things all the time. But when I got on the mat, I moved fluidly. I moved very well. I knew where things were. Once I grabbed a hold of the grips, I knew where the arm was. I knew where the neck was. I knew where the ankles were. I knew where the knees were. And I could move.
Yeah.
And it kept me positive. It kept giving me something to get up for.
Mm-hmm.
And kept my mind straight. Kept reminding me that there's still things I can do. And I've even been asked, are the doctors okay? My mom will ask this, are the doctors okay with you still doing jiu-jitsu? I don't think that'd be a good idea. And I'm like, as far as the doctors are concerned, I'm so limited on what I can do. If I can do that, they're perfectly fine with it.
Yeah, because that was going to be my next question too, because, rolling with spastic white belts or, just, spastic people anyway, yeah, you do run the risk of getting like poked, eye poked or punched or elbowed or headbutted.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of, worst case scenarios that could happen. And I'm like, I was literally about to ask, like, is your doctors okay with that? Is it like, or is there like, you just tell them like, nah, just sit at home and do nothing?
No, it's funny. The cornea specialist, his assistant, her son trained at 10th Planet here in Phoenix, and John Botello, the head instructor at the 10th Planet out here, was a friend of mine. So I knew of them. I knew the coach, and she knew exactly what it was. So when I told her, they were like, "Yeah, well, it's wrestling," and like I said, the doctors were like, "Look, we prefer that you wear safety glasses," but that didn't last real long because they don't stay on your head very well.
No.
When you're grappling, even with headgear, they end up twisted all over your face.
Right.
Really, what it caused me to do was really focus as if I was dealing with strikes on the ground. So, for example, if I'm on my back, I always want to be aware of where the hands are in case somebody starts swinging down on me. Well, I'm still going to be aware of where the hands are and always trying to have that control because I don't want those fingers drifting into my face.
Right.
So in that aspect, I kind of went back to basics, went back to the self-defense, and just kind of got better and sharper on that so that I could be more aware of where the hands were and how to keep them away from my head. And now, like, for example, at Abu and I, we'll do a little combat jiu-jitsu where we're slapping. And I can deal with it for the most part. I mean, some still slip through, especially on the right side, but nobody's going really hard. And I help everybody else get ready. I still help MMA fighters get ready for some of their fights because the knowledge is still there.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I might not be able to spar very hard or, stand up and strike like I used to, but what I learned, the things that I gathered, the information that I put together, it's all still there. So I definitely am open to sharing it and giving it to them and providing that. So again, it keeps my mind strong. It keeps me motivated. It keeps me with a drive. And at the same time, it allows me the opportunity to share it. And that's what I enjoy, is sharing, the knowledge base that I've gained and my experiences within the art and in the sport of MMA, because they both were hand in hand so much.
Yeah, definitely. And like at our school, my instructor, I talk about this guy a lot because he's pretty awesome. But
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the things that, we kind of like adapted, just rolling with our eyes closed.
Mm-hmm.
And like I would roll with so many people, white belts or whatever, and I wouldn't even be paying attention to them. I won't be looking their direction. I'll be like looking at the remaining, like the class that's going on, or I have my eyes closed, or I'm just like off somewhere else. And you're like, how are you doing this and you not looking at me? You're like, well, I don't need my eyes to do jujitsu.
Yeah.
Like once I get that, that contact, then I know where everything is. And then like not long after that, my instructor kind of broke it down, and we actually did it in like a class. Like we, someone started on their backs and someone in their guard, and he was like, okay, go. So there's, they're reacting to react, and then he was like, okay, stop. Now both of you guys close your eyes and then go. And it was a big significant difference because obviously you can't see what you're doing, but you kind of have to feel what your opponent is doing before you can actually able to react. So a lot of their movements got a lot better in an instant because they're not relying on their eyesight.
Yeah, well, even for me, when my eyes first started messing up and the cataracts started to thicken out, I had just gotten my purple belt. And part of it was, I've been in the art for a while. It's where you would be at purple belt. But I noticed when my eyesight started to get really bad, I started to notice their balance more. Like if I was going for a half butterfly sweep, I could feel their weight shift right where I needed it so I could really drive in on it.
Yep.
And then later on, when the eyes really were starting to go, I was already at black belt, but I took a deep dive into the Rickson Gracie invisible jiu-jitsu stuff, connecting your hips, connecting your knees, getting those connections. And I started learning how to use those connections to feel. So, for example, if somebody's turtled, my arm's coming in across their waist, I'm kind of in on the inside thigh, but I'm not really gripping. All I'm doing is feeling because they're going to flex that part of their hip to make any movement.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as soon as I feel that flex, I know something's coming. I'm always a step ahead that way.
Yeah. And yeah, that's how we learn it too. Like if you're able to, for one, keep yourself calm, keep yourself relaxed, and you're not focusing on what you see, you can feel your opponent's muscles tense up before they react or before they move. Or like you said, you can feel the weight shift. Like, oh, that's the little nudge I needed, and now you can finish your sweep, go for your kill, and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
It is. I even use things like when I'm sitting in somebody's guard, I bring my knees right up alongside their hips, caging their hips essentially. So if they need to move their hips out, they're going to have to lift their hip first.
Yeah.
So again, I know they have to get themselves out of the little hole where I've caged their hips. That little bit of movement lets me know they're about to go.
Yep. And
so I've got that.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I'll say I've got that precursor that lets me know, and now I'm already setting mine up. So it's kind of like back when I was a white belt, I got the opportunity to do a seminar with red belt Grandmaster Alvaro Bajeto. He and his brother were two of Helio Gracie's first instructors at the original Gracie Academy, and he told me, he said, the essence of jiu-jitsu is yielding to succeed. And it's always stuck with me. But years later, my professor, Marcelo Cavallo, he tells me, he goes, look, something very similar. He told me, he said, sometimes you're going to end up going where they put you. You just got to make sure that you go there on your terms. Make everything happen on your terms. And that's what it allows me to do, because there are times, especially with no gi, where the connection isn't as good as it is with the gi. Yeah, they might get a step ahead of me, but I can catch it up and get back ahead again because I'm making things happen on my terms.
Yeah.
And I've taken those concepts to heart and really applied them. And it really did help. It allowed me, like, even when running the collar, when I'm coming into side control and I'm trying to keep control of that collar on the gi, I call it running the track. Rather than just throw my arm out underneath them, I'll just slide my hand up the lapel because it's going to go right where I want it. I just got to follow the tracks.
Yeah.
So I feel like having the problems with my eyes, even though I can see a little bit better than I had starting out, it's really helped me to hone a lot of those skills. And then as an instructor, I have a couple friends that they started as white belts and they were already fully blind. And they train at other gyms, but they'll come over to my house because I got some mat space here, and we've trained a little bit. And I think to myself when I'm teaching a class, I'll think, if I had somebody in this class who just walked in off the street to do a jiu-jitsu class and they're blind, how would I break this down? Because what you get from a lot of instructors, especially the Brazilians, okay, my friend, we're going to put our hand here and then we go there and then we do this. Well, if I can't see what you're doing, I'm lost.
Right, right.
So sometimes I feel like I go a little too much into detail, but I do have people tell me, nah, that detail was perfect, because even the people that can see will say, that detail is what really made it work for me. But then I'm always thinking, I'm really trying to explain to the person who can't see and doesn't have the verbiage to know what I'm talking about.
Right.
How do I break this down easier for somebody who can't see what I'm doing and has no idea what we're doing? And in that aspect, it's made me a better instructor too. So there's, they always say there's a silver lining. So yeah, I feel like that's been, the silver lining that I've been able to experience from the difficulties with the eyesight.
And that's so crazy because I'm an assistant instructor at our school, and our instructor teaches that way. He teaches like in detail, and I would find myself when the times I teach class, and I would just we like to say, for example, if we're going for an X choke from guard, and I would break it down into so much detail, and it's like, okay, everyone understands it, but at the same time I'd be like, damn, am I talking too much? Am I giving too much information? Because I'm not just saying, like, yeah, put your hand here, and then, this hand comes over this way, and then you do that, and blah, blah, blah. Like, no, I'm like, okay, say inside, outside, depending on where the person's body is. But, the inside, outside hand does this, and then the inside hand comes around, you grab the lapel, you kind of want your thumb to kind of be, like, almost wrapped around their neck a little bit. That's how a good depth to finish this choke. Then you do this, and then you hip out this way, you make sure this and this and that, and I'm just breaking it down, but I'm like, man, I feel like I'm rambling. But absolutely. That makes me feel better knowing that I know I'm doing it correctly, because obviously I see my instructor do it, and hearing that you being of the caliber that you are, and I'm thinking, like, while you're talking, I'm like, dang, I do the same thing. So that actually makes me feel good.
Yeah, sometimes I still get that every now and then, because there are some people that I can see just enough, and if they're just close enough, I can see the blank stare still on their face. And sometimes a lot of detail, especially for newer people, can be a little overwhelming.
Yeah.
So when I try to get one-on-one with them as they're working the technique, and that's where maybe I pull back and say, focus on this part, and then once you have that, then we'll go into these other details. But because you're in a full class, 15, 20, 25 people, you don't always get around everybody as much as you'd like within the time you're allotted.
Right.
And so you want to have details, because I do, especially, even in our fundamentals, we've got, purple belts that regularly, we're always pushing even the higher ranks to always come back to fundamentals class.
Oh, yeah.
Everything comes from the basics. And they're the ones that are like, man, I love the detail because I was missing it, and it was that little detail that fixed what I was missing. So I have to adjust sometimes, but for the most part, I'd rather provide too much information than not enough.
Exactly. Because our system, we under Master Joe Moera.
Sure.
And so we follow his system to the T, down to like our principles or rules or snakes or shrimps or whatever different schools call them. And one thing I always loved about listening to him teach and being able to, like, I did a private with him too, and it just blew my mind, because I was like, okay, I want to talk about escapes from bottom, and he was like, okay, and then we started going over our circle snake, where you're on your side, you take your your outside leg steps back, and then you kind of bridge on your shoulder, thread the bottom leg through, and then you come up. You come up to your knees. And so we're going over that, and I'm thinking to myself, like, man, I know this stuff. Like, I know this stuff. Like, I know how to do a circle snake from bottom, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, well, he knows, so let's keep going. But him being able to break it down into like fine detail where it opens up so much more of jiu-jitsu just by a small shift, like because you might not necessarily be able to hit the technique exactly the way you want to, but if you're open-minded enough, you will move something and be like, oh wait, snap, though this is here too. So that one move went from just me being able to escape to me turning into an attack to go, flip from defense to offense and be able to finish the fight.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've said for years, even when I was like a white and blue belt, I used to use the analogy with people of, when you're a white belt, you're in like a little 1 square foot tile.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you see. And as you progress, you're adding tiles. And by the time you get up in a black belt, you've got way more tiles that you're able to see. And so part of that becoming aware of those other things is part of the progression.
Yeah.
Because things start to open up that you didn't see. And then when you have somebody like, Grandmaster Morera, who I'm familiar with because my professor, Marcelo Cavallo, was one of his longest running students and came to the United States with him. So there's some similarities that we get that came from the Morera systems that we get from my professor Marcelo. And he's always giving me little things that's like, okay, this is what you're going to do. Try this from here. Look, I'm doing this and I know this works, but then I get this guy who's really got a good base. This sweep isn't working. What can we do? And he gives me little details that make all the difference. And from those little details, I can open them up into other things. And that's why I like teaching conceptually a lot, because the concepts can be applied more broadly to so many different things.
Yeah, definitely. And I love, like, me personally, when I teach, I don't like to like throw a lot of techniques out at people because we do have I think we got like five white belts now, and I definitely want them to be able to like learn and understand this stuff. So like, for example, if we're going over a triangle from bottom, I'll break it down step by step. Like, okay, we're going to do the triangle. We're going to get to that point, but this is how we're going to start. We're going to start with your opponent in guard. We're going to work on getting your foot in the hips first, getting comfortable with your butt off the ground, your foot on your opponent, controlling the arms. We're going to start with that first. And then I'll break it down. Okay, we're going to take it a step further. Now we're going to add, punching the arm through to shoot your hips up. And then I'll break down how to shoot your hips up. And then I'll, finish the triangle. But yeah, I've loved teaching in detail like that because it makes it a lot easier to understand. And then when you get those people that's like, oh man, I'm not getting something right, you can know exactly where to fix it because like, okay, what part are you referring to? Because if I just show you a technique like do this, and this, and you tell me I can't get it, and it's like, okay, what part are you talking about? Like, well, everything.
Yeah.
But if I break it down,
that's everything.
Right, that's everything.
Right?
But if I break it down piece by piece, and it's like, okay, what part you having trouble on, then we can address it a lot quicker and a lot more thoroughly, and they can learn it properly.
One of the things I like to do in those type of situations, because my eyesight isn't so good, is I'll have them do it to me.
That too.
And then I go, okay, this is where your problem is, because I could already feel where they're having problems. Mm-hmm. And then we can address, because sometimes they can't even verbalize because they're new. They can't verbalize where they're having problems.
Right.
And that allows me to feel it. And also, I like to touch everybody because then I can, like you said, it's easier for me to coach. I can't sit on the side and coach people as much because I don't see what they're doing so good. So I roll with them, I touch them, I feel them. And then sometimes I think it's good for them to feel what the finished technique is supposed to feel like.
Yeah. Yeah.
This way, look, let me do it to you. You can feel it. Now you know the end game. Now you know where we're trying to get to. Your partner should be feeling what you just felt when you're done.
Right. Yeah, I would jump down there if they're saying like, oh man, I don't think he got it. I'm like, what do you mean? I don't think it's locked in right. All right, do it to me. Let's see. Yeah. Like in the instant, like, okay, do it to me. Let's see. Oh, I see what's wrong. Shift your weight this way. Oh, there you go. Now try that. Yeah. Yeah. I gladly get down there and teach and be a uki and everything else I can, during jiu-jitsu class.
Yeah, and it as the coach, it helps you to learn and grow as a coach also.
Yeah.
Because you start looking, you start noticing consistencies. And then it's funny because, I sometimes joke that there's too much emphasis put on the different belt levels, but yet I'll see somebody go from white to blue belt, and a few months into blue belt, I start noticing little things that are getting better, little things that weren't happening before they got the belt. I don't think it has anything to do with the belt. It's the amount of mat time they have.
Yeah.
But you kind of, as an instructor, you kind of start to see where it's like, yeah, look, yep, that's exactly where they need to be.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly where it is. Maybe they weren't there at exactly the time they got their belt, but within a few weeks, sometimes a couple months, you're going, yep, there it is. It's right there. There it is.
Yeah.
And you can almost see and notice that growth. The more you get to see it, then you start seeing those commonalities. So you can say, look, this is the path. We all go through it. We're all experiencing it. We all have these same frustrations. That's okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of what I love about jiu-jitsu so much is seeing that growth in other people, not just myself. Obviously I'm growing too, but by the time I got to, I want to say purple belt, like I'd say like halfway through purple belt, we were getting like new students in, and one guy in particular, I talk about him a lot. This guy, one of our blue belts now, his name is Ray. Smart kid. He came in and he took the jiu-jitsu quick. But the fact that like when I was coming up, my training partner Brian, he showed me a lot of stuff that he loves to do, and so I was learning under him. So then when we got the guys like Ray, for example, we were both like, me and Brian was like, okay, we both know this stuff very, very well. He's gonna take to it very, very well. So we started teaching him everything that we knew, just like our instructor did us. So he's advancing so fast. And it's like I said, it's such an awesome feeling. Like, dang, that, just only imagine when we get people under him, how fast they're going to grow, because they got us, him, and then everybody else that's growing in the gym.
Yeah. What's amazing to me is when you see that with the teenagers, like 14, 15, 16.
Yeah.
I see that so much with them, and even with some of I've got some kids, like one of them, he's going in the Marines this coming year. He graduates and he's already going into the Corps, and I was training with him when he was about 10 or 11 years old. And now he's been doing it as long as some of the black belts that we have, and rolling with them. He's not yet a black belt, still a purple belt, mostly because he spent a lot of time going to wrestle in high school and taking a little time off jiu-jitsu. But rolling with him is like rolling with another black belt.
Nice.
These kids, you've got these kids that have been like my son. My son started when he was 4. About 5 or 6 years old, he ended up taking like 6 years off. Got him back into it when he was 12. Now he's 17, and he's like 6 feet tall, and he's smashing people, and he's passing guards, and he's doing this. And he's not a kid that wants, like, he never really wanted to do it. He's not super passionate about it. But there he is with grown men, and then he jokes, "Dad, this is child abuse. You got me getting beat up by old men." I said, "I don't know. It looked like you were the one doing the beating."
Right.
But you see this progression, and I think, man, I mean, I was 32 when I got started. Imagine, I was a gymnast when I was his age. Imagine the shape I was in when I was 17, what I could have done if I had jiu-jitsu.
Oh, man. Tell me about it. Oh, I think about that a lot, because my daughter, she started training, and she just turned 7. So she's only been doing it for a couple months, but just to think like, oh man, if I had the chance to learn at that age now, oh my goodness. Oh yeah. And then it's funny because I thought I was old when I started at 32, and like we got a guy that just started a couple weeks ago at Abunai. He's 62. Oh.
And I talk to him a lot, and I try to keep him motivated to keep coming back, because a guy his age, you can tell it. He's gotten bit. The bug is there. He's passionate about it. But I'm like, don't go too crazy with it, because you got to listen to your body.
Yeah.
Your age is there. You don't want to push yourself to where you get so injured that you can't come back to the mats for a while. And then, once you're off the mats with an injury, sometimes they don't come back because, they create new habits.
Yeah.
you know? And so it's like, I joke with him. I'm like, look, man, part of old man jiu-jitsu is knowing when to back off a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was old at 32. He's starting at 62, man. His journey's going to be even crazier than mine.
That's exciting.
Because I think about it, I'm like, 32 really wasn't that. I see some 32-year-olds starting, and they're pretty good. 32 is not that old. Well, yeah, I'm 48 now.
Right.
So, it's like everything's perspective, and I joke, and my family laughs at me all the time. I always apply jiu-jitsu to life. I'm like, it's like life. You don't notice the things until you look back.
Right.
And you got to get that little bit of experience, get those years behind you before you look back and go, wow, I see that now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that in jiu-jitsu. You go up the ranks, and my friend, Professor Sadiq, he jokes about it because he's like, when we were kids in the art, he means like white and blue belt. When we were growing up in the art. And he's right, because even if you start at 62, you're still growing up in the art.
Yeah.
You're like a child. Everybody can do to you whatever they want because you don't know yet. Mm-hmm. You're trusting your training partners to take care of you like a baby. Until you can get up and crawl and walk, and then you're running, and now you're wrestling with everybody.
Right.
And so I look back at it and I'm like, man, 32 wasn't that bad. These young cats got to stop complaining. 30 years old, you're still good. You got lots of time.
Yeah.
You haven't been beat up too bad yet.
Yeah, I started in my 30s.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm only 34. So, I mean, am I 34 or 35? One of the two. I lost count. But but yeah, I started in my 30s, and yeah, I wish I would have started sooner, obviously, because I'm like, man, I wish there's so much more I can do. But yeah, I still have a lot of time, Lord willing, I still have a lot of jiu-jitsu to do.
And I even look back, and I went through my 20s in the 90s. And in 93, I was 19 years old. A few months after their first UFC, I got a VHS tape at a friend's house that was like a third generation recording with tracking lines on top. You could barely even make out the fights. That's what we saw the first UFC on. And we were sitting there doing bong hits and drinking, watching the fights. And I got super into it. I had already figured out, these guys, as a teenager, if I got into a fight, they have longer arms, they know how to work off a jab. I'm going to have to get in close and just safely get there, clinch with them, take them down, because that's probably where I've got my best shot. I had at least figured that much out. And I'm watching this, and then years later, I find out that a childhood friend of mine that I had a breakdance crew with in 5th grade is doing this street fighting martial art that he created. And he used to say, even when we were elementary school, I'm going to start my own martial art. It was Greg Jackson from Jackson's MMA. And so in the late 90s, 96, 97, 98, 96, I was working on the road. I was a manufacturer's rep doing trade shows all over the country, and I'd come into town maybe a week or two. And if in between going to the bar with my friends and just screwing around while I was home, I'd go into his dojo, his academy, and they were doing, he called it jiu-jitsu, but it was essentially no-gi because it was what he called gairu jitsu, which meant way of the street. He called it street fighting, but it adapted very well for what eventually became MMA because at the time it was no holds barred.
Right.
There were little to no rules, but the arm bars were still there. The guard play was there because he was borrowing from the Gracies. He was working and learning jiu-jitsu from the first black belt in New Mexico. And he was developing what now is known as Jackson's MMA, and he's got multiple, world champions under him now. But even back then, I wasn't taking it serious. It was like, I can go in there and fight with these guys, and we can brawl, and we can do this, so at least I know I still got it. But I wasn't taking it serious till I got sick. And then I got sick and tired of just lifting weights. And I had kids. And when I started jiu-jitsu, my son wasn't even a year old yet. And I already had 2 older daughters. He had 2 older sisters. So I even get some of these young cats who are like, man, I just had a kid. How many kids you got? I got 1, man. It's so tight. I get it. I did it when I already had 3. If you really want it, you'll prioritize it. You'll make it happen. For me and my family, it became a family thing. All my kids trained. My wife had been in a car accident. Her whole right side was messed up. She couldn't train. But when I helped a friend co-promote a tournament in New Mexico, we started doing tournaments for about 5 or 6 years. She would help with the announcing. She would help with the score tables. She would help with the registration and the weigh-ins. It became every 3 months we're putting on a tournament. My daughter's helping with the scorekeeping. The youngest one's helping with the photographer taking pictures at the award stands. My wife's helping with the registration. She's helping with weigh-ins. We're putting together brackets. I'm refereeing and I'm competing, and we're doing this. And the whole family's involved. The whole family's going to jiu-jitsu 2 or 3 nights a week. My son's in the pee-wees. My daughters are in the kids' class. I'm teaching the adults' class. It became a family thing. And then the gym became family. So, it's like, look, it's hard. I'm not going to say it's not easy. I was lucky. My job was pretty flexible. I could work from a laptop anywhere in town that I was. But if you really want to do it, you'll find a way to make it happen. And look, having a family is great because they're going to learn it too.
Yeah.
They get to get in there. They get to get on the mats. My daughters, I know they know what to do if they need to. I still get on their butt about getting in and getting back to training. But now I've got 2 grandsons, 4 years old and 6 years old. And they come over and the first thing out of their mouths is, Papa, let's go to the dojo and go play jiu-jitsu. And I bring them in here, and to them, it's just a game. They run around trying to pass my guard. They play crazy horse while I'm bucking all over the place. And then I put them on the grappling dummy, and they work a choke, or they work an arm bar. They play with the positions. But to them, it's just a game right now. But now I've got a whole other generation, my grandchildren now coming in, and that's the first thing they want to do when they get to the house. Let's go on the mats. Let's go on the dojo and go play, Grandpa. Let's go. And it's a wonderful thing. Now I have a whole nother crop of kids to share it with.
That's awesome.
I love it. The art has become a lifestyle for me. It's become a savior for me. I even tell people when we're working break falls, trust me, the break falls will probably save you before any of the self-defense even will. For me, when I was riding my Harley, I got swerved down to the shoulder, hit a rumble strip, and I knew the bike was going down. And if I hadn't been doing judo back falls, learning to keep my chin down, learning how to fall flat, I came off that motorcycle and a judo back fall, and my head didn't bounce off the road because I had built up that strength in my neck to keep my chin tucked.
Yeah.
When I lost my eyesight, when my eyes were really bad, I would trip over almost anything. If there was a step and I didn't see it and nobody warned me, I'd walk right into it and fall forward. Well, good thing I knew how to do front falls because my arms protected me. Mm-hmm. Even those little things in the break falls will probably save you before anything else will, because you fall around in life, especially the older you get.
Yeah.
So that's why I drive the fundamentals, and it just, for me, it truly has become a lifestyle. It pervades everything that I do. It became who I am, and when I couldn't work anymore, when I couldn't do these other things, I still always had jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
That never went away. And like I said, now I've got my grandsons, my son. They're all here. They're training. They're learning it. My son jokes he's going to quit when he's 18. He also told me he was going to quit when he was 16, and he's still going. So, he may not quit when he's 18, but that's fine. It's great. I hope he gets a passion for it the way that I did. It's been great. My grandson's other grandfather on their dad's side, he was a wrestling coach, a high school wrestling coach, and he's 71. And he comes to me, we were on a trip a few weeks ago, and he comes to me and says, hey, he goes, I'm thinking of coming over and doing a little jiu-jitsu with you. And I'm like, heck yeah, man, come over. He has the wrestling knowledge, so I want to pick his brain. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's like my other friend who's a black belt who knows him told me, he goes, if nothing else, he goes, it'll be good for his spirit.
Definitely.
Because he's going to get to move. He's going to get to do these things. And, it doesn't matter the age. Even if you're old, even if you're so old, you'll never get to black belt. It's good for your spirit. It's good for your soul. You get to engage with other people. I joke with the 62-year-old that just started training with us. We were trying to do some rolls and stuff, and he's struggling with it. And I said, don't get frustrated. It's okay to struggle. You haven't played like this in a long time. As kids, we used to play like this, rolling around on the floor, rolling around in the grass, rolling around and jumping around in the dirt. But as we grow up, we don't play like that. You get the chance to come in here on the mat and play like that and learn to play again. You got to get those feet under you again and get them back. get that roll back and keep going, because I feel like that's what we do when we're on the mats. We're just playing.
Yeah.
I play, I smile. I could be getting smashed by a 300-pound beast, and I'm smiling at him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just happy to be there. Plus, I learned to be comfortable everywhere. I've been doing it long enough. You're not going to put me anywhere I haven't already been. So I'm sitting there smiling, just waiting for my chance to reverse it. But I'm smiling because I'm just happy to be there.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be able to be on the mat. I a few weeks ago, I rolled with a UFC fighter that trains at the MMA lab out here. And he's like a 2 or 3 ranked welterweight or light heavyweight, and I rolled with him, and I was getting good positions, and he's just getting ready to start a camp, and I rolled with him, and I was just excited to be on the mat with a high level MMA guy and still be able to hold my own. Yeah, we had on the gi, and he wasn't going really hard, but I had him in some pretty bad predicaments. So my middle-aged butt really felt good to be able to roll with a 20-something high-level UFC fighter and still feel like I held my own. It made me go home with my chest a little pumped.
Yeah.
Because us old guys, you start to feel like you lost it, and sometimes you just got to feel like you still got it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been amazing. I know people who have done other arts, karate, different types. Where I'm from in Albuquerque, Kaji Kempo and American Kempo were always really big. I never heard any of them talk about it the way Jiu Jitsu. A lot of them that have gone on to Jiu Jitsu, the way they talk about Jiu Jitsu. There's something about engaging with the other person, being in there tight with them, and then having to fight your way out. There's something about all that just it gives you an endorphin rush. And it's a wonderful thing. And like I said, I honestly can't imagine, not having it, after this amount of time.
Yeah. And what's amazing about, what you were saying about, just, feeling alive and you just feeling that connection. Like one of my good friends, one of my, I consider him my brother. He's doing his own thing. He gets in to train every now and then, but like for a few months we haven't, he's been so busy with work and his profession. We haven't seen each other in a while. We talk, but we haven't seen each other in a while. And we had open mat one day, and it was obviously good to see him, but we rolled for like 4 minutes, and I'm not gonna say I got emotional, but I just got so excited because, when you miss somebody so much, and then and on top of the fact that y'all do something y'all both love, which is jiu-jitsu, man, it was such a amazing feeling. I'm like, oh man, I missed you, but I really miss this.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
like a big violent hug.
Yeah.
I have the same thing when I head back to Albuquerque. I got a couple guys that I came up with through blue, brown, purple, and brown belt with, and then I moved, and they end up getting their black belt, and I go back home, and we get the chance to roll. And it's like Chris Howder said, it's not about who's best, it's about who's left.
Who's left, yep.
And I got these guys, man, they're still left, and I get to come into town and we roll together. And I mean, we were rolling together 13 years ago. I was there when they were white belts 14 years ago too, when I started at that gym. And we've watched our kids grow up together. Yeah, when you say, this is my jiu-jitsu brother, our kids grew up together. My daughters still talk to their daughters. They're all in high school and married and having kids now, but they still talk because they grew up like cousins. They were always there. We were at each other's kids' birthday parties and spending holidays and hanging out, and we were at the gym, and we might not see each other as often anymore, but it's like going home and seeing family.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's the same thing even when I go to Vegas. I go to Vegas and my old instructors are there. There's less than a handful of people that were still training. They were training when I started that are still doing it, but there's still a few, and I stay in touch with a couple of them. And when I get out there, I always try to come out and see them too. And I mean, we're talking almost 17 years ago, and we're still in touch. And maybe we get to see each other in person 2 or 3 times in that 17 years, but when we get together, it's like we're gonna slap hands and try to kill each other.
Exactly.
And that's how we say hello and I love you.
Yes, man. Yes. Cause we just like after me and him rolled, we just sat there. We just like, breathing hard. We just like smiling at each other. It's like, damn, man, I missed you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
man, I don't know any other martial art that makes someone feel this great. Just to like, okay, I'm gonna try to kill you, but at the same time, I'm gonna show you how much I love you.
Yeah. Yeah. Trust me, I just choked you, but it's only because I love you.
Right. It's only because I love you. I choked you.
It's wonderful, and I got people like that, like my other friend, Professor Mario. He's one of our black belts with GFT Arizona, and we all got together because he had a couple guys that are getting ready to go to Nogi Worlds in December. So we all got together at Blue Star this past Saturday to kind of help them sharpen up their sword for Worlds. And I hadn't trained with him in a little over a year. I try to get out to his place regularly, the MMA gym where he teaches, but this year I just haven't gotten out as much. And it was the first time in a while that we've gotten to roll, and he got to roll my son, and he looks at my son and he's like, damn, boy, you got big. And then they rolled, and I hear him going, man, you got strong, kid. And it's like, yeah, because he was 12 years old when you started training with him. He's 17 now, and he's a big kid now, and now he's giving you a hard time. But that's the beauty of it, man. Like you said, you get to watch the kids grow up. It's literally family.
Yeah.
You get to see these kids grow up. You see, I see kids that I was teaching the kids class back in 2008, 2009. These kids are now in the military. They're graduating college. They're moving on with their adult lives. And I remember when they were, the snot-nosed 12-year-old that was being a smart aleck in class. That I had to make stand on the medicine ball because they wouldn't stop talking. And now you see them grown, and they'll still say, like, man, I mean, I still think about things I learned when you were my coach, and I still remember you coaching me at the tournaments, and I still remember us rolling, and you just mollywopping me all over the place, and now I can kick your butt.
Right.
But it's a wonderful thing, though, and again, it is like family. I my nephews and nieces, I see them the same way as a lot of the kids and a lot of my training partners' kids. I got to watch them grow up. I got to be a part of it, and I'm proud of each and every one of them. Jiu-Jitsu is amazing in that way, and it's growing phenomenally. I mean, look at Abu Dhabi, man. 15,000 people in the stands in Las Vegas watching it, and it's just to see that. Versus watching, videos in 2005 of the first 5 Abu Dhabis when, the only people there was the Grand Sheik watching it from binoculars.
Right.
To see where it's going to and where it's growing from. And, it's awesome to see. And you see guys like Gordon Ryan making, a living with it, making some real money with it. And it's like, man, that opportunity wasn't there when I started.
Right.
It's amazing to see.
It is, man. Jiu-Jitsu is amazing. Now,
it's.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say it's definitely life altering and it like my friend said, it's good for the spirit.
It's definitely good for the spirit. I 100% agree with that. But yeah, if you got any questions for me, or if you want to shout out your schools that you train and teach at, the floor is all yours.
Yeah, well, again, I'm here in Arizona, co-director of GFT Arizona. We've got a great team here. We got affiliates all over the valley. Our headquarters are in Surprise, just outside of Phoenix, at Blue Star Grappling. Anybody that wants to, is in the area and wants to come through and train, they're welcome to come through there, or even at Abunai, which is in Avondale, also just right outside of Phoenix. We've got a great crew. They're welcoming to everybody. I'm always at one or the other. I'm always available also to train with at home. I've got 200 square feet of mat space at home where, we get in and play at home too. So, anybody that's listening, if you come to the Phoenix area, hit me up. I'm all over social media. Like I said, I got a lot of time on my hands. I've got a Mendez Jiu-Jitsu page. I'm also a proponent of cannabis-infused Jiu-Jitsu, the High Rollers. So I've got a Professor Buddy Stoner, the High Roller page also, that I do. And I'm kind of in the works of doing a high roller theme type of shootout event. Still putting some planning in place, but I'm hoping to get a tournament going where we can do a shootout like New Mexico versus Arizona, all 5 weight classes, kind of wrestling tournament kind of style. But all that's still in the works, but something that I'm hoping to get going. But anybody, we're real open to everybody. Nobody tries to hurt anybody. We're just all out to have a good time. So anybody that's in the Phoenix area, feel free to come through and train with me or any one of my teammates here in town.
That's awesome, and I would definitely stay up to date with you on that. And once you get it rolling, I would love to, you come back on and talk about it, and we can get it, try to get it out there more.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, and that's the end of today's episode. I would love to thank my guest Nestor again for coming on the show. I really hope you guys enjoyed the tales and some of our experiences. Please go and follow our Facebook and Instagram page to stay up to date on all future episodes. This has been Talk Your Jits podcast. Keep rolling, keep grinding, and remember, long live Jiu Jitsu. Have a great day. Jitsu. Have a great day. Jitsu.